welcome to class. Let's roll on down. And we're going to straighten out the legs and just see how our lower back feels. So I've done this I think with you before, where we check the lower back. So we're going to try and flatten the lower back to the ground as we exhale, and then inhale to release it. Now if there's some stiffness, just become aware of it. We're going to do sort of a little trick, as it were. We're checking with other parts of the body basically to see if the tightness is really coming from the lower back or whether there's a connection to other things. So we're going to do about 3 or 4 of these. Exhale as we flatten, inhale as we release. And then, and you might want to pop your leg on top of something. I'm just going to use the ball here. You can use a foam roll or a cushion, or you can just use your other leg if you want. And all we're going to do is just rotate that ankle. So make sure that foot's comfortable. You can rest it on anything you have at all. And you're just going to rotate the ankle. Start off sort of whatever speed, and then we're going to slow it down, and I want you to try and get into the, I kind of call it the corners. If you can imagine your toes are trying to draw as big a circle as possible, might be slightly ovally shaped, and you're trying to flex the foot as much so you get quite a stretch on the calf. Slow it down when you get to some funky stuff, and make sure your knee isn't moving. So you don't want your knee to roll left and right. So if necessary, maybe put your hand on your thigh, and you don't want your knee, or have a look, you can do this sitting up if you want, have a look that the knee isn't wandering off with the foot, because that will tell us that there's a lot of tightness in the ankle and the knee is trying to compensate. Of course, we've got to do that in reverse, so whatever way you're comfortable here, sitting up, watching the foot, or lying down and relaxing the rest of the body. I've just got a hand under my head if that's comfortable for you. You can put a little towel under your head if your neck feels a little bit tight. So we're just going to rotate through that ankle. Again, we'll start up a little faster, and then we're going to slow it right down. As always, breathing and just checking in, seeing if we can get to that corner up there. Don't let the knee move. Come towards you with the toes, towards your own kneecap. That should be a good stretch on the calf. And then turn the foot in, so your big toe is actually twisting up towards your inner thigh or towards your other leg. And then you're going to push the big toe away from you. You're going to point, you're a ballerina here, don't let the knee bend. Again, if you've got some tightness in the ankle, the knee is going to keep doing this. And around. Right, we're going to switch that over to the other side. So again, just for comfort, I have that. You can have your other knee bent if you prefer, or straight, whatever you're comfortable with. And again, we're just going to swing the ankle around a couple of times at whatever speed works. We're not going to be too specific at the beginning. And then I want you to slow that down. I want you to watch that this leg isn't following the foot, so keeping the leg still. So there's actually quite a bit of work going on in the thigh muscle to stop the knee from moving. If you find that's a problem, you can sit up and actually physically hold your knee. If you have a lot going on with an ankle, you're like, yep, there's no way my leg is going to do that right now. It's just going to keep following the foot. So you can then just hold the knee if you need to for that. And then, as I said, you're trying to get to like over, see whatever you can see, whatever you can kind of draw a circle around. So whatever your foot is sort of, I've got a shelf or a cabinet here. I'm going to try and get my foot as far over without the knee moving. And then switching directions. So if you might only have to hold your knee in one direction, or you might have to keep an eye on it, maybe not hold it. As at the first 1 or 2 here, we're just going to rotate. So I'm not going to think about too much. And then we're going to start to be more specific. We're going to try and go there where it's tight. Now, some of us have really flexible ankles in one way, and that's usually your big toe coming in, or your ankle as if you're turning on your ankle. So very often you'll have to work to get the big toe to go out without the knee going out. So if your knee is turning out, that doesn't count. You want to get your foot to turn out, but not your knee. And then let's do 1 or 2 more. Okay, from there we'll pop that out to the side. Resting on, and we're going to take the first leg and step it over and catch a hold of that shin wherever you can reach for it. And then the other arm, and I'm just going to have to move down because I feel it's too far up there, The other arm is going to go straight. So holding the right leg, then my right arm is also straight. If it makes sense. And we're just going to try and reach the right hand away from the knee. So I'm going to get you to pull this knee like towards the foot down there. And of course we're going to breathe. So this is a good one. A moment to check in with our breathing. And hear me say it often enough. In through the nose, out either through nose or mouth. If you're any bit stuffed up, obviously it can be difficult to breathe out through your nose at the beginning. Sometimes we have to wait a moment for that to free up or whatever. We're going to stretch the palm of the hand to the ceiling. I want all 5 fingernails on the floor. Sounded easier in my head when I said it before I had to do it. I think when one side goes down, the other comes up sometimes. So if you spread your fingers, you find that like your little finger is coming up or your thumb is not down. Okay, I'm going to let that go. Switch sides. As always, if you can't physically reach your own leg, grab a towel. I'm sure, at this stage if we can or can't, and we're going to stretch out the arm, and you can straight away already stretch out the fingers a little. We'll come back to them in a moment. I'm going to press that knee away, and I'm going to keep reaching that hand up to the wall above my head. It's there. And then I'm going to try and press all 5 fingernails onto the floor. Now the thumb is going to be sort of side on. That's fine. But the other 4 are flat to the ground. And spread out. Spread the little finger a bit more, spread the ring finger a bit more, stretch out the middle finger, point the index finger and pull the thumb away from that index finger. I have mentioned breathing, so we're just going to check in with that. And decent inhale and exhale, and slowly let both arms go and bring everything back. Now we're going to go back to where we started earlier, straight legs, and get you to flatten your lower back to the floor. Now that hopefully between the ankles and the stretch of the arms should have helped. May not have fixed everything of course, but there is a definite connection between ankle tightness and lower back tightness. And for some of us that's where our lower back tightness comes from. Ankles are tight. Maybe we have damaged our ankles over the years enough to cause that, or partly to cause that. Let's go for one more there, then we'll step the feet in and do the easier version, as it now would be called. I'm going to flatten the lower back to the ground now. As I said, that should be maybe easier than it normally is. Also because we've already done a few, of course. Exhale as we go. And then the other reason our lower back is tight, because this whole sort of arm to lower back scenario, the muscles there can be very tight. And that can have to do with how and what we do with our arms throughout the day, as well as obviously having injured our back that way. So again, some of this can go back to injuries, some may just be tightness. Let's roll on up on the next one. Now I'm going to check in with the feet this way, so I'm going to just press all 5 pads of the toes into the floor on either side. I'm going to drive through the heel and just squeeze the bum a tiny bit more, and then we'll roll back down. And we'll kind of do like a slow version of this each time. So we're just going to check the feet and check the bum squeeze at the top. Breathe in. Slowly, I kind of want you'd imagine you're pulling sticky tape off the floor, not maybe sellotape, but something that's really sticky. You've got to peel it really slowly, because otherwise it'll tear. Obviously your back's not going to tear. But peeling the spine really slowly off the floor. It's usually harder when you do it that way, because you have to go through the tight spots. If you rush it, you generally skip over the tight stuff. Breath in, so we're going to press all 5 toes on either side into the floor, and then drive that down through the center of the heel. Now you might notice that you feel much stronger on the one foot. And always just check in with it. We're never going to be even on either side, unless you plan on brushing your teeth one day with your right hand and the next day with your left, which would be confusing at the best of times. we're always going to have better awareness of our dominant side than we are the other side. And that'll go down to the feet. Not all of us are right-handed and right-footed. Some of us are right-handed but more left-footed, vice versa. So, and again, it doesn't matter. Our bodies don't have to be 100% symmetrical. Squeeze the bum, press the heels in, and press through all 5 toes. However, we don't want to let it become a problem, because sometimes it can, especially when we've had an injury. And if we have an injury on our weaker side, we then obviously become even more dominant on our dominant side. And then sometimes we don't correct that when the weaker side is healed up. So if you have an injury on it, if you're right-handed, if you have a left-sided injury, roll up one more time here. That can happen maybe quicker than if it's a right-sided injury or dominant-sided injury, because obviously you want to use this hand to brush your teeth again, but maybe our leg for stuff, particularly hands. So obviously we do so many things with our hands. So that weaker side can then become even weaker. So that's what we want to avoid. And when I say injuries, it doesn't have to be a broken arm. It can be just that you've cut your finger and you've had to mind that hand, or you've sprained your elbow, or whatever it is, your shoulder's a bit sore. And you've just been kind of minding it and not lifting with it. So kind of checking in with that. Right, I'm going to stretch with my fingers. I'm going to get a good stretch today. I'm going to stretch the fingers again. Then I'm going to stretch the fingers and press the palms to the ceiling, fingers pointing overhead. Don't let the elbows bend here, they might want to. And then I want you to think of as if you're pressing to hold the ceiling up. So not only are you pressing the angle of the hand, or bending at the wrist, sorry, you're also pushing the hands to the ceiling as if you're trying to push up hands against the ceiling. So your shoulder blades will slide apart. And then in that position, which in itself should be a bit of effort to hold because all your chest muscles are working, I want you to sweep your fingers around until your little fingers meet. And then sweep them around until your index fingers meet, or your thumbs, whatever you want to think there. And let's try that for like 2 or 3 twists before we're going to have to relax that. And take this little strain off the muscles. Twist as far in and as far out as you can. And then let's relax that, shake that down for a second. We're going to do a second round of that. So we're going to go back up, we're going to stretch all the fingers out, we're going to push the ceiling away from us, and then we're going to do this kind of sweep to either side. Sweep around, the other way. And there's about 2 or 3 of those, and relax the arms back down. Stuff from there, I'm going to straighten back out one leg, bring the other knee up. I'm going to circle the knee around, what we did with the ankles earlier. Relax the arms next to you. If you want a little bit of extra balance, you can put the hands a bit wider. That will kind of help you to balance. If you want to make it a bit harder, keep the arms a bit closer. You have to work a little bit more through the center. So see what works for you. So again, first couple of these, whatever speed, and then we slow it down and we try and go that little bit further across here, that little bit further up here, that little bit further out. And we're going to do somewhere between 5 and 10 rotations, depending on how quickly you end up doing them. Probably closer to 10. Anyway, we're going to switch directions. So again, the first 2 or 3, just let them happen. See how everything feels in that direction, and then start working on something. Now you might know you've got a lot of tightness, your knee doesn't come that far up. I was watching someone put socks on this morning. It was, they were not able to get their knee far enough up to pull the socks on. So that's kind of where you want your knee. And understand, if you can do it right now, it's not, you're not even going to think about that as a problem in later life. And I say later life, this was somewhere in their early 50s, so that wasn't that later life. So the ability to just pull her knee up far enough to get her socks on might sound really simple, but if you can't do it, it took them about twice as long as putting socks on really should take. So with that in mind, I'm going to because I just happened to see that this morning. We're going to bring that knee up, hold it with our hands, and bring it the extra bit that maybe we struggle with. And maybe you don't, I hope you don't. But if you do, now's a good time to check in with that. So that you can still put your socks on when you're whatever. In 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, in whatever many years. Sounds really simple, but I'd like the ability to keep that ability my entire life. That's just me. We're going to circle, especially after having seen somebody struggle so much this morning. Circle around. Again, try to stabilize from the start. Maybe start with your hands a little further out and then bring them in closer as you feel you've woken up those muscles. And whether it's pulling your socks on or other things that we need to do in day-to-day life, and your life is different to mine, it's different to somebody else's. So what you need to or want to be able to do every day may be very different, but I think we all need to be able to put our socks on, unless we don't wear socks, ever. So it's one of those things that we may want to maintain. We're going to switch directions again, the first two. So figuring out what exercises we need to focus on in our life, or what particular stuff, because we want to be able to do X, Y, and Z in the rest of our day. And I know you know that, because that's why you're here. Maybe you were unable to do something that you had been able to do previously, and you want to be able to get back to doing that. Maybe that's having strength in your shoulder to lift stuff again, flexibility in your ankles to run, strength in your back, so you don't have back pain when you're standing throughout your day at work or wherever. Whatever our reasons are. Last one here. I'll bring that knee up. So what you're focusing on might be slightly different than what I'm focusing on, because we use our bodies a little bit differently. As I said, except for the pulling on socks bit. Or shoes for that matter. Whatever you're pulling on. So being able to lift your foot up and tie your shoelaces. So, just checking in with that flexibility, that pulling our knee up to the chest bit. As I said, we may be able to do it with our hands, but at the end of the day, we also need to be able to do that from our own muscles. So now we're just giving it a bit of help, and then later we'll come back and let the muscles do the work. Lovely stuff. From there, we'll turn on over onto the side. As always, grab ourselves a cushion, a hand, or a towel, whatever underneath. We're going to go with a straight arm, and again we're going to stretch the fingers a little bit. Now we're going to do 5, and each time we go back we're going to think of a different finger. It doesn't really matter which one you start with. If you have a particular injury or issue with a finger, bent, twisted, broken one, maybe start with that one. It's going to stretch that finger back and particularly focus on that finger. It might be your thumb that you start with, or your little finger, or as I said, any of them, doesn't matter. And come back up, and then pick a different finger. So the sequence doesn't matter. If you want to start at the thumb and work your way around, go for it. Or if you've just started randomly with the finger that's hurting, has hurt in the past, whatever. Or the one you noticed is just tight today. If you use a computer mouse, that could very well be your index or your middle finger, just from the position. The thumb often is one because it works differently to the other fingers. And if you really have just a lot going on with one finger and the others feel kind of okay, you can also check that one a couple of times if you need to. Some fingers have the same muscle attached to them, others have their own muscle, so that also changes how you feel them, or where the tightness is through the forearm. So the thumb very much has its own, and the same with our big toe, they have their own muscle. And then some of the other fingers are on, they share a muscle, they share nerves. One more. So whatever part of the hand we haven't focused on yet, and see how that interacts with your forearm. So you may have felt quite a stretch. As I said, different fingers are on different muscles, so you've felt the same stretch with this sort of 2 different fingers. That's fine. Or quite a different one, depending. Stuff from there. I'm going to straighten out that top leg. Just make sure I'm not going to hit anything there. and curl the heel back. So as much as we want to be able to pull our knee up to put our sock on, you could also put it on back here if you want. Obviously, complicated, but we also want to be able to pull our heel up towards our bum, because that means our knee flexibility is there, and also to pick up our foot when we're walking, or going upstairs, running, or whatever. Exhale, we wake up that hamstring, especially if we sometimes struggle with tightness in that hamstring. You want to use that muscle. Exhale. We stabilize through the middle. This ability to do stuff on one leg, now this is just a movement, but we need stability in the middle when we're standing on one leg, when we're moving from one leg to the other. The next time that foot is up there, we're going to catch a gentle hold of it and just hold it for a moment. You don't really need to do too much else right now. You're then going to squeeze your bum until you feel a stretch. If you don't feel a stretch yet, you can also pull the foot and the knee slightly backwards. You may not need to do that part. You may just need to squeeze your bum. And then we're going to breathe. Keep squeezing the bum. So it does two things. Gets your bum muscle working, never a bad thing. And it stretches the muscles we want to stretch. If we just pull at the foot, sometimes you get a lot of stretch at the knee and at the tendons, which we don't necessarily need here. You tend to get more of a stretch into the full length of the thigh. And then we gently release that down. So let's switch that over onto the other side. So again, we're going to go through the fingers. Exhale as we extend back. Breath in, back up. Second finger, whichever one that is for us. If you want to just go, as I said, systematically from one side to the other. Again, we're going to notice the hand that we're dominant on more. So I'm on my right side, I'm dominant on the right side. I will always tend to have more stuff going on in the right hand because I use it for more things. Breath in. So, should be on finger number 4. Breath in once we're back here. And back. And one last time. Stuff from there, we'll straighten out the top leg and curl the heel back. We don't want that knee moving. So you can have your hand on your thigh here at the side, or you can just keep an eye on it. Your hand on the hip here. Again, we're going to stabilize the middle. So I kind of want your waist to float up a little bit. Whether your skin, your body is touching the ground or not, doesn't matter, but the muscle is pulled up. The muscle is sort of just like a little bridge. You could have a little stream running underneath your side here. So it doesn't matter whether there's something outside of the muscle will be doing that. It creates this sort of bridge, kind of like an arch for the foot. You put a little bridge arch here between your hip and your ribs. Exhale, or your hip and your shoulder. Sometimes your ribs float a little bit as well, that's okay. You'll feel this muscle engaging underneath. Your oblique muscle, that should be working the whole time. Also while we hold the stretch. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to kind of relax too much with this stretch here. You're going to keep squeezing your bum and you're going to keep holding up this oblique muscle. Exhale as we hold that foot. Try and release the tension with the exhale. You can imagine breathing out the tension. You can imagine the tension as a color. If that helps you. If it doesn't, just breathing. We all work differently, so figuring out what works for us, what helps us. Just sometimes it's a way of distracting us ourselves if we have to think of a color or have to think of something. We distract ourselves from the actual discomfort of the stretch, and then that allows us to do it a bit easier. Well, less discomfort or less awareness to the discomfort. Right, we'll release that down, coming up onto hands and knees from there. And then with the exhale, we're going to squeeze into the oblique again. So this time we're side bending with it. So it's a little bit different the way we use it this way, but it's the same muscle. So exhale as we squeeze in. Now again, this is one where a lot of us will have a slight difference. Now this could come because you have some tight lower back muscles, you've got some hip imbalances, you've got a tendency to sit with one leg crossed over the other, which tends to hike up your hip. Other postural things that we do, we might be side sleepers, we may tend to sleep on one side and therefore one side is tighter than the other. So this is a good way to try and kind of stretch that out, balance that out, strengthen the weaker side and stretch the tighter side. So if you're holding one side a little bit longer than the other because you notice the difference, that's fine. So your weaker side is the one you want to hold is on if you can. So for most of us this would be your less dominant side. As it with injury, sometimes that's not the case. Let's go with one last one there. And then with the exhale, we're going to roll the spine up. Breath in at the top. We're going to think of the fingers again. So I want you to create a little arch under the palm of your hand. So when you roll up here, you're pressing into the 4 fingerprints and the side, probably the side of your thumb, depending on your thumb flexibility, maybe a little bit of the thumb fingerprint. But the palm of your hand is not on the floor completely. Like you could put a little coin or something under the palm of your hand and you wouldn't feel it there. Lifting the head, letting the lower back sink to the floor a little bit. And then the opposite, pressing the lower back up if you want to focus particularly on the lower back, kind of going back to earlier. If there's some tightness there. Moving out. One more time. Pulling up through the pelvic floor, so trying to feel that sensation. I talked about this a while back, but the lift going up between the legs. This is one way you can practice that. Roll it back out. Now you're going to sit back 2 ways onto the ankles. One, we're going to keep the ankles flat, try to sit all the way back onto them, or as far as you can. You might be hovering here, you might be holding yourself up through your hands, or you might be all the way back here, you might be lifting up your knees. Or you might be just sitting here and that's enough of a stretch. So see how you feel. Ideally, you've got your feet straight so your big toes aren't touching, because they'll do that, and then that's we're stretching more the outside of the ankle, which for most of us, as I said earlier, is the more flexible part. So we don't normally have to stretch that as much, so you want to be straight with your toes. And then we're going to do the other way, which is tucking the toes and pressing back, sitting back again. You might be sitting here, or here, or here, or here, wherever you are. If you can go all the way back. You can also sort of set your knees back a little, like you're stretching into it more, and then you get a lovely calf stretch thrown in for good measure. Toes, calf, foot. Did I say lovely? Back lovely. Breath in, and then come back up. Now if you want, you can keep your toe tucked if you want to kind of just let that toe sit there a bit longer, or you can flatten your foot here. Again, the other hand is on the knee. We're going to make a fist here. I'm going to circle that arm up and around. Back. Now, keeping the middle engaged, keeping the ribs still, and just making that shoulder joint work for it. If you want, you can pick up a weight in the hand here after a couple of these, if you want to work on that. If you've got a lot of hypermobility, weights are always good, or if you're just trying to build strength, of course. One more. I'm going to keep that arm up there. I'm going going to go sideways. You can also have your hand against something here. If your leg isn't good enough, you can put a wall or a chair there, or a foam roller. Go sideways. Back, we've got about 3 sideways bends. Try not to let your shoulder twist forward or backwards, so this arm is going straight down. Shoulder. On the third one here, we're going to go sideways, and then once we're sideways, we're going to try and twist to look at the ceiling. If you had some trouble getting your knee to your chest, that will have been our hip flexor to some degree. So trying to give that a little bit of extra stretch. And release that back down. Start from there, but move that foot a little bit forward, and then sweep both arms up again if you want. You can pick up some weights. So if you have one, you can bring it up between the 2 hands, or you can use 2, one in either hand, depending on whether you're focusing on the arms here or whether you want to focus on this hip flexor stretch. You can also take the weight out of the equation and work particularly with this one arm. And the other arm even here for balance. See how we go. One more. Switch that over onto the other side. So starting off with a squeezed fist, circling through. I would say with this one, moving the shoulder to places it hasn't been yet today. If you wanted to add in the weight, you could. The rest of the body nice and strong and still. So there's quite a bit of work going on in these stomach muscles. Put your hand against your rib stomach here if you want to kind of feel that a bit more. The next time that arm is up there, we'll leave it up there and then go to the side. You can release the fist obviously here. Stretch your fingers out again, going to the side, breathing in, back again. We're going to do that 3 times. Exhale, breath in, and then once we're here on that 3rd time, we're going to try and twist to look up, and I'm using my hand here a little bit to help twist the body to look up to the ceiling. Just get into another angle in that hip flexor. And release it back down. Step from there if you want, with the weight or without. Reach both arms up and sink into the hip going forward. Exhale. If you want, you can also do this with one hand resting on your knee, then you're using the weight in one hand. I'm going to give you like a couple of different options here. Or of course, you can do it completely, utterly without a weight. Exhale. So if you want to focus on the hip stretch, either using both arms on the way up, or again, just that one without the weight, you can then obviously focus a bit more on the hip stretch. You're going to squeeze the glute to push the hip forwards. Breath in. And back. Stiff will have that weight ready to go. Hop onto one hand, 2 knees, or fist if we need to, elbow up, and that kick back, and then weight to shoulder. That might have been the last time we were doing a bit of work going forward, so you're going to twist the weight and bring that right up to the shoulder so you have a little bit more bicep effort in here. Exhale as we straighten back. Keeping those stomach muscles firmly engaged. chest sides. Exhale as we kick back. That elbow is staying up in line with our own ribs. A bit of effort work on that bicep curl. Awareness of our neck posture or lower back. You can have your toes tucked here, just move them around between tucked and flat. If you have threats of a cramp coming up, just keep moving them if you need to. Last one there. I'm going to sit it back, arms reaching out in front, and then landing the elbows down and trying to keep each hand over the same side of shoulder. So if your thumb maybe taps the top of your shoulder or your whole hand, whatever, exhale. Let's repeat that for like 3 or 4 times. Exhale. One more. And back up. So from there we'll go face down onto the mat. Hands to either side of the head. We'll spread out the fingers a little bit and then extend back through the shoulders, through the spine, through the neck. Tap the forehead to the mat and come again. Exhale as we go. That feeling of creating space at the front of the chest and shoulders and strength at the back of the body. Especially if we often feel a bit slouchy, if we feel our shoulders are rounded, or we have a lot of neck strain, pain obviously as well. Exhale. Inhale at the top. And then on the next one, we're going to extend a bit wider. You might want to separate your feet a bit, so they're about mat distance. And then if you want, you can let your elbows come up with you, hips come up a little bit. Try to get this to be a lot of effort from the back and not so much just you pushing your body into this position. So whilst your hands are helping, they're not leading this. Your back muscles are taking the lead, and then your arms are sort of just helping that last little bit. Down. Let's go for about 2 more. Taking a breath in once we're up here. You're looking out in front of you, depending on how high up you get. Last one. Breath in at the top. And lower back down. Head resting on the hands or whatever way you're comfortable. And then we'll pick up one leg at a time, stabilizing the rest of the body. So you don't sort of feel your neck and shoulders trying to lift the leg as well. Exhale as we lift up. Inhale as we lower. And then with the next one, we're going to pick up both. Lower. Pick up. I've talked about sort of tightness through the hips. Sometimes if we try to squeeze as much as possible to get the legs to come up, and then also remember to relax all of the muscles plus some that we've already maybe had some tightness in. We can release a little bit of tension through the hips this way sometimes. Squeeze everything. Remember, you've got to relax everything when you land, which can sometimes be harder than trying to squeeze. So try to relax everything when you land. As you get a better squeeze, more active muscles, not just tense ones. Let's go for 2 more. One last one. And back down. Hands beside ribs. Let's sit ourselves back. Whatever part we need to stretch through. If you want to think of the ankles, the hips, the lower back, the shoulders, the arms, the fingers, all of the things I've just mentioned. And then we'll roll back up. So we'll turn on over. Reaching the arms out in front, pulling ourselves right over the legs. Now, that is that same knee to shoulders thing, except this time we're bringing the shoulders to the knees. Rather than moving the knees, we're moving the body. Which in this position, because your knees are already bent, I'm going to say should be doable. I'm hoping that the knees and the shoulders meet. Maybe. Let's see. See if you can get the knees and the shoulders to meet. Might be easy, fantastic. As I said, hopefully don't have issues trying to lift your foot up. I got stuck on this seeing somebody struggle so much. And it's not the first time I've seen someone struggle to get their socks on. It's a reminder. We don't see that every day, because obviously we don't always watch people putting on their socks. When you do, okay. We'll make that a bit harder by stepping the feet away. Now what might happen is your toes might not stay on the ground, because your ankles won't want to do that. So let the toes come up. So again, you're going to roll forward, touch the knees with the shoulders or the chest, whatever. And then roll back. And again, knees to shoulders to knees, even that way around. Roll back and come up again. Okay, so once we've done 3 or 4 of those, you probably gathered what I'm going to do next. I'm going to make it, we've probably got 1 more bend left, so that next one will be straight legs. If yours are already straight, that's fine. So at this point, if they're still a little bit bent, you won't be going quite as far back. So we're not going to worry as much about the rolling back, because it gets more difficult. So we're going to roll forward and focus on the forward. So forward, focus on the forward, and then up. And then, as I said, the next one is going to be straight legs. Now at this point, the likelihood of knees and shoulders still meeting, it becomes a lot less. We're also going to roll all the way down, so just make sure you've got space. If rolling all the way down isn't a possibility for you, you can use the weight to anchor down your feet. Just sort of stick it on top of your foot. That can sometimes help. You can wedge your feet under something. If you have a good sturdy couch, that will work. Or you can use a bit of momentum and swing your arms a bit harder. And then we're going to work to try and don't let the knees come up. We'll work to try and get the shoulders down towards the knees. Yeah, we've also got to deal with our hamstrings when we do that, and our hips and our back, and so many other things. Never mind those hip flexors at this point. Now what we're doing is we're working these actively, these hip flexors. So we're flexing at the hip. And that obviously works both ways. Whether you're pulling your knee to your chest or your chest to your knee, the same muscle has to work. Exhale. Now at this point, we should be fingers over toes. So in other words, if you wanted to put on a pair of socks, you now could. Obviously if you bend your knee, that gets even easier. So we're going to exhale and roll up. If we can do more than we need to, that's fine too. We're not just aiming for the minimum. So see if we can pull ourselves forward. So I'm going to spend like a second or 2 in that position, or 3 or 4. Let's go with one last one here. Roll up, forward. Let those hamstrings stretch out. And then from there, we'll bend the knee if you want, or you can just roll down the same way you did a moment ago. Landing down. Depending on what's going on with your legs, you can take a ball or a foam roller or something and squeeze it between your knees. If you want, you can follow me and then we'll do a bit of everything, or you can stick with this one. If, however, you find you need to work more on the outside of the legs, you can use a band like that and pop it around. So this is a little roundy, headbandy type one. You can use a bigger one and just wrap it around your legs as well. If you don't have one or the other, just go with what we have, that's fine too. So we're going to squeeze. If you're fine, we're going to do both, but if you want to just do more of one or the other, that's okay. If you know you should, or you've got something going on that you're working on. So I'm going to squeeze whatever it is. Now with that in mind, we're going to come back to, we've talked about this a good bit over the last couple of months, inner thighs, pelvic floor, glutes, trying to feel some of those muscles. And as I always say, sometimes as important to relax them. So when your bum lands, your bum is soft. Just that last moment when it lands, you need to relax those muscles. Your legs take over from about where your bum is like an inch or so off the floor. Bum muscle is relaxed and we land softly. Make sure the thighs and hips are doing the work there. Opposite when we're at the top, firmly engaged. If we're not sure both sides, so this is if we're uneven, if we've got one stronger hip, one weaker, one tighter, pop your hands against your bum. Does it feel like the muscle is equally strong, equally squeezed, equally in size even? So very extreme. Most of us probably you can't feel or see it. You'll have quite a bit of it. Some people will have a much bigger muscle on one side of their bum. So you might be able to tell, when you put your hands in different parts of your bum, that all the same muscles feel like they're engaged. You might also be able to tell that without your hands, so whatever works for you. If you're not pressing equally through the feet, the side you're pressing harder on will be more engaged. I want you to try that out. So you're going to come up and you're going to focus, like no one's business, on pressing your left heel into the floor. Press your left heel, and you'll find your left bum should be working harder. I'm going to do the other side now when we come back down. Exhale, you're going to come up, and we're going to focus on pressing the right heel into the floor. And your right side should work harder than your left. Even though it looks pretty even, you're kind of up at the same hip height here, because you're focusing on one side. So if you have a weaker side, you may need to do that a little bit. So if you try that again, come up. If you know you're uneven, if you could see one hip is dropped here, you really probably need to focus on squeezing that side more than the other. So start by squeezing that side more, and then add a little bit on the other side, and then hopefully we end up with an even amount of squeeze. Hold that for a moment and come back down. Now we're going to change. If you want to keep squeezing the ball, that's fine. We're going to change and pop that around the outside, because it just gets us to focus on slightly different muscles. If you're not sure which one you should be doing more of, then it'll be the one that feels harder when we do this. So for some of us, not an issue to press our knees apart. So you want to have a little bit of tension on the band, and you want to maintain that tension nice and steady as you lift up. Now, because when we turn out the knees, it activates additional glute muscles. You will feel this generally slightly more in the bum than you do with the other one, because the other one activates more inner thigh muscles, which are leg muscles rather than bum muscles. The outer thigh muscles are more in our bum in this way. So if this one feels like you're doing more with your bum, you kind of are. But we need all of these muscles, so these are not more important. Inner thigh muscles, outer thigh muscles, they both hip muscles, they all need to work together when we're standing and so on. So exhale, but if this one often feels like, yeah, I can feel the bum muscles a bit more, because you're using more of them. Exhale as we lift up. Again, we're going to do the same thing here. You're going to press left heel, because whatever your less dominant side is. So for me that's left. And press the left heel into the floor harder. And then we'll do the same on the other side. Exhale, going to come up normally, and then press the other heel into the floor. And then whichever side felt weaker, whichever side we need to focus on more. As I said, for most of us, that'll be your less dominant side, but it could be something going on, whatever you have. So squeeze that side more for a moment, then squeeze the other side, and now we should be equal as we're going to get today. Take a breath in and come back down. I'm going to do one more of those. See if we can do that squeeze without having to correct. So as we go up, we're already equal. We don't have to additionally squeeze. We know the side we have to focus on from the second we lift up. And that's what we're working towards if that didn't immediately happen. Right, we'll take that band off, and that was a good way to figure out whether you can reach your feet. So if you can take the band off without sort of having to do gymnastics and you can sweep it off in one go, suggest you probably get your socks on and off as well. That was a random, accidental test thrown in there for good measure. Right, from there we're going to straighten our arms out, a bit more twisting for these obliques. Like this one, turn the head one way, twist the knees the opposite. And then stomach muscles to lift the weight of the legs. So if your legs separate, you've got two options. You can just squeeze them together, or you can squeeze something between your knees as well. Sometimes that's another way of, like a little towel. Exhale. If you want to make life harder, you can have some ankle weights on here. If you don't have ankle weights, you have okay hamstring flexibility, then you could do this with straight legs. If your legs don't quite straighten, you could do it with slightly bent knees. If you want to make it harder, straighten the legs or add weight. So they don't have to be perfectly straight, the legs, but if you struggle having the legs straight, then maybe adding weight is easier for now. Twist. One more each side. You can also go back to doing them with bent knees. Try not to use this hand on the floor other than for a little bit of balance. So don't push. We will end up pushing a tiny bit through the hand, but try not to exaggerate that. Right, we'll bring them in, hug both knees up to the chest. And yes, that is another way to just stretch. So if we struggle, if maybe not your struggle, getting your socks on in the morning, and even this in the morning can be a nice stretch. We're doing this in the evening. If you have some general lower back or ankle tightness, this can feel nice too. So you don't have to have a struggle to want to do a stretch. At your hold of the knee, we'll roll ourselves up. Bring yourselves into a sitting if you're more comfortable with something on. And then we'll do a slight version of what we often do. So you can only do this one-sided generally because the band is never long enough. If you don't have a band, don't worry, you can just do this without a band. So this is the one we normally do. If you have a band, do the same. As I said, you probably can only do it with one side depending on the length of your band. So just doing one side. If that's not enough resistance, add in some more. You can also hold this band. I'm sitting on it. You can hold it and do both hands. I tend to find that that squeezes a bit in the stomach. So kind of having it under the side of my bum, but having it come around there a little bit. And I can focus, again, if I have some unevenness going on here. So keep adjusting the tension on your band if you need to. And you can have a check as well if you're doing this one-sided. It's easier to check what's going on in the shoulder. The elbow is staying in the same spot here. It's not moving. Holding that for a moment. The effort is not in the arm but in the shoulder muscle. So if you're feeling this a lot in your forearm or like your upper arm, try to get it to come around like under here, under your back of your shoulder. So slow it down when you start to feel the arm kicking in and try to find the shoulder. And that can take a moment before that feels like it's more shoulder or less arm. Your arm will also work, but try and let the shoulder do at least some of it. So if you're doing these without the band, then you can do them as we normally do them, switching sides. So if you're doing them without the band, doing them like that. You can have a weight in your hand instead. It'll also give you a bit more resistance. Exhale as we go. So this one strengthens that whole shoulder, which it does also if you don't have a band. It just adds a bit of extra. Like always with resistance. Sometimes it also allows us to feel better. So sometimes doing something without resistance doesn't make it feel like we're working hard enough, and then we're not sure if we're working the muscle. Here, you will know which muscle you're working. As I said, if you're starting to feel your hand, your forearm, your upper arm, and not your shoulder, then the shoulder probably isn't working as much as it should be. And whilst you're getting the band over there, we're not getting the muscles working. So we're going to slow it down wherever you start to feel whatever kicking in that shouldn't be, and you're going to pull back from the shoulder until you feel the shoulder. And once you feel the shoulder, then your hand should be also moving back a little. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't move that far. If the shoulder muscles are weak, they're not going to get it as far back as the arm muscles might be able to bully it. The arm might be able to like push or pull into that direction, but your shoulder might be weaker, so that's what you want to sort of check in with. So is the shoulder actually doing the work here? And if it is, often when you strengthen that, it takes a lot of pressure from the neck. Now I'm going to check in with the neck in a moment, but you might start to feel your neck a little bit here, like you need to kind of move it, or it feels tight, or something's releasing. Good news if it is, that suggests we need to strengthen the shoulder and help our neck a lot. So last one there. So we'll pop that down, and then as I said, check in with the neck. So you tip the head to the side, tip the head to the other side, tip the chin towards one shoulder, again chin to the other shoulder, and then chin to the center. And then we'll do the same going up, chin to one above the shoulder, other side, and then straight up. And then any of the directions again where you felt tightness. Could be more than one, so you may have to go move around. And then once you've kind of checked in with that tightness again, we're going to roll the head the whole way through. A bit like the ankles and the wrists earlier. First one or two are kind of just checking in, and then slow it down if it's tight there, or there. Try and work on those tight spots as you go around. So as you pass through an area that just doesn't feel as good as the rest, slow it down a bit. Work on that particular section. Come back to another one. And then at some point we're going to switch directions. Whatever we didn't figure out one way around, we'll try and come back to it on this way around. As always, if there's pain, we need to back off. That's for any stretch we ever do. If there's discomfort that's bearable, that's what we consider stretching. It feels like, as I said, discomfort, but it's not the kind of discomfort that you shy away from. It's kind of like spicy food. You don't want it to burn your tongue, but you want a little kick. That's kind of what stretching is. And some of us can tolerate slightly more spicy food than others. The same with stretching, so how much you can stretch can depend on how much sleep you had last night, or just in general, what we're used to, how much we've stretched in a lifetime, whether we sort of tend to dislike discomfort. Most of us tend to dislike discomfort. But sometimes we can sort of tell ourselves it's good. Turning the head over each shoulder. Anything that we didn't sort of check in with or haven't had to be able to sort of free out with the other movements. Check in with it here. Sometimes it's this direction that we need to actually work on. So your level of spicy, as it were, is up to you. You sort of want to feel it a bit. That's kind of what stretching can be described as. And the same with exercise, how hard we want to push ourselves. And sometimes how hard we can, depending on, again, how tired our body is, other things. We can only tolerate a certain amount of stresses in a day. If we have a lot of other stresses, then sometimes exercise has to take a little backseat until we're in a better sort of place to tolerate that level, that extra level of stress. It's good stress, but it is still stress. Anything you want to kind of move around for a moment. Give the shoulders a roll. Just focus on our breathing for another couple of seconds or a minute or whatever. And thank you for joining me, and I'll see you in the next class.